Hi, I'm Doug Likes. Well, winter came with a vengeance last night. We have nearly 8 inches of snow on the ground. Summer is but a distant memory. But what a summer it was. I had all kinds of projects lined up, and I finished most of them. But the one I'm most proud of is the completion of an assembly table / workbench. Now, I built this bench using a variety of scrap lumber, a countertop, bolts and screws, etc. that I had on hand. I did have to spend maybe $25 or $30 to complete the project, but mostly it was free. It took a little bit of time, but it was well worth the effort. It turned out great. I'm so proud of it, and I have used it a lot. Let me show you how I did it. Summer came early and fast to Central Illinois. It seems like we only had 3 weeks of spring. That was okay. With a summer full of projects ahead, I needed the extra time. First up, stain the decks. What a job. It took 3 coats of stain and nearly 2 months to finish. Holy cow. It sure looks good though. Next job, stain the front porch posts. Then paint the porch step, 2 hose reel lids, 3 basement window frames, and 2 shed doors. Next, I built an 8-foot long picket fence. After that, I moved on to a much needed, much delayed task. Clean the shop and find a use for all that old lumber. Stuff I might use someday. You know what I mean. I needed a permanent workspace, having used a makeshift workbench assembly table for years. Consisting of an old countertop perched on a variety of boards, long, short, thick and thin, it was far from ideal. 4 wooden sawhorses supported this unstable mess. It was time for a change. Over time, I had squirreled away a bunch of scrap lumber, plywood, OSB, bolts, nails, screws, etc. A clinking, clanking, clattering collection of collagenous junk, as the Wizard of Oz would say. This assortment would form the foundation of a new workbench assembly table. I didn't have enough items on hand to finish, but I'd come close. I once built a workbench using plans from Woodsmith magazine. I decided to recreate the bench with a few modifications. Woodsmith still publishes the plans. You'll find a link in the comments below. I sketched up a rough diagram and set to work preparing the framework. The final dimensions would be 36 inches wide by 92 inches long by 34¼ inches high. Fortunately, my shop is in a walkout basement with a sidewalk outside. I wheeled my contractor table saw and portable miter box stand outside, then set up a workstation using folding sawhorses and a hollow core door slab. I brought out my old trusty Craftsman circular saw and several more tools. Then I got to work. I carried the countertop outside with a panel carrier. This little device came in handy. A panel carrier is one of those tools you rarely use but find invaluable when needed. Lowe's sells them for $7. The old Formica top came from a friend's machine shop. It was propped against a dumpster for the trash men to haul away. Scavenger that I am, I rescued it for future use. Using my circular saw and a homemade crosscut jig, I crosscut the top. Next came some scrap MDF. I cut an old box into pieces, then ripped the remains of a sheet of MDF to size. The MDF would add stability to the countertop. Take notice, cutting MDF is a dirty job. Dust flew everywhere. I should have worn a mask. For legs, I cut old treated 4x4s to length. Using my circular saw, a wood chisel, and a sanding block, I notched out spaces for 2x4 side braces. I followed by ripping material into 2x4s and cut them to length. I needed 12 boards for the sides, that is rails, and 6 boards for the end frames. I laminated the boards together using glue and 8-penny nails. It was a good thing as the lumber was twisted and warped. Fortunately, the nails held them tight, and the glue provided a permanent solution to their sorry condition. Woodsmith's plans call for a draw bolt system to hold the rails to the end frames. After cutting the rails to size, I drilled 1-inch pocket holes 2 inches deep and 1 3/4 inches from the ends. I then drilled 7/16 inch holes through the ends of the rails into the pocket holes. I squared up the holes to provide a flat surface for the washer and nut to draw against. Finally, I countersank 1-inch holes in the end frames, followed with 7/16 inch holes drilled through the middle. Carriage bolts placed through the holes completed the draw bolt system. With the pieces cut, I assembled the base. The poor state of my lumber required a block plane to level a couple of uneven joints. Fortunately, it did the job. The framework came together level and square. I then turned the framework sideways and attached 3-inch casters to the legs. I wanted a mobile bench. A buddy of mine gave me these for free. He's a good guy. Thanks, JP. On the bottom rails, I attached cleats to support a 3/4 inch OSB shelf. This board was a gift from my brother, who I suspect wanted to get rid of an old board himself. I cross-cut and ripped it to size, then dropped it into place. For the middle shelf, I considered buying a new sheet of OSB to make a simple one-piece shelf. However, this project was about using up existing materials. So, I created a framework to support 3 long, narrow lengths of plywood and OSB. I cut small boards into 1x2s and used a Craig jig system to fasten them together. The shelving boards fit perfectly. Incidentally, I used a magnetic wristband to hold screws. This is yet another of those little tools that come in handy. Amazon carries them for $10. My neighbor had a half-gallon of paint left over from painting his house shutters. Knowing about my project, he offered me the extra paint. The slate blue color was a good match for my old countertop, so I accepted his offer. Here's another product plug. I'd never used painter pyramids before. They work great. Although the plans didn't call for them, I decided to attach side braces to the frame. I drilled holes through the boards and placed them on either side using carriage bolts to hold them in place. They may not add stability, but I think they look nice. Finally, using pocket screws, I attached the countertop and declared the project complete. That top isn't going anywhere, and neither is the bottom. I built it like a tank. Like most projects, there were a couple of issues. First, I got carried away in nailing the rails together. I used 2-inch power finish nails and clamps to hold them temporarily. Then I drove in 8-penny nails to hold them permanently. Unfortunately, when drilling holes, I discovered the finish nails were smack in the middle of my intended hole. If that wasn't enough, the 8-penny nails were nearly too close together. Fortunately, the finish nails were aluminum. My spade bit cut through them easily, and I was able to work around the narrow placement issue, but barely. Second, I could have cut the countertop differently. For this job, perfection wasn't necessary. If it were, I would have cut the countertop upside down, taping the bottom edges. I'd have used a fine-tooth blade too. As it is, my top has jagged edges. For this application though, rough edges are okay. Mistakes aside, the finished product turned out great. Wouldn't you agree? The paint equalized all components. Plus, the countertop and color matched perfectly. The casters roll smoothly, and the joints came together well. 6 months later, they continue holding tight. I can't say enough about this workbench/assembly table. I use it all the time, from painting a cabinet to refinishing a bench, fixing Christmas lights, and completing household tasks. This bench certainly improved my life. Best of all, I have a clean shop and finally put that old lumber to good use. Well, that's my story. The story of how I took an old countertop, a variety of lumber, some carriage bolts and screws, put it together, applied a coat of paint, and ended up with a very functional and beautiful assembly table/workbench. I hope this encourages you to get in your shop and do likewise. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.